So today has been one of the more eventful days that we've had in a while at the 49ers facility. And that's saying something because this team certainly has a knack for the dramatic. But word from Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero earlier this morning, which has now been confirmed by Kyle Shanahan, is that Sam Darnold has won the quarterback two battle against Trey Lance. And then the plot thickened at practice today when Trey wasn't at practice. The plot thickened some more when Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch did not speak to the local media. They weren't scheduled to speak, to be fair, today, but obviously there was a lot brewing that the media saw today, and the media heard about Sam Darnold winning QB2, and then they didn't see Trey Lance out on the practice field. So we thought that we might get to talk to Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch, and we didn't after practice. However, Kyle Shanahan had a pre-scheduled KMBR interview this afternoon, which just wrapped up, and I'm here to summarize what we learned from Kyle Shanahan's interview. It colored some of the day. We have a little bit more of an idea of why certain stuff might have happened, but there are certainly many more questions right now still than answers, in my opinion. So I'm going to contextualize everything really quickly, and then we're going to spin it forward and talk about what might happen next for the 49ers. First off, Shanahan said that he had a really tough conversation this morning. So that's Wednesday morning with Trey Lance. Shanahan said that the 49ers set up a battle between Lance and Darnold. We already knew this. Brock Purdy was going to be quarterback one throughout. The only thing that might have put that into question at any point was the recovery from the elbow injury. But when they signed Sam Darnold, the intention was for Sam Darnold to battle Trey Lance for the backup quarterback job. And Shanahan said it was a hell of a battle. They were neck and neck for a long time. He said that about 10 days ago, and that coincides with when the 49ers went to Vegas for joint practices with the Raiders, Sam Darnold started to pull away. And Sam Darnold has now pulled away to the point in that battle to where whatever happens on Friday against the Chargers won't change it. Shanahan has decided that Sam Darnold is his QB2. Unlike what you might hear on the internet or on Twitter, this is not really controversial. The Sam Darnold has been a lot better than Trey Lance, especially the floor of play. Lance is still really raw and really inconsistent, and the 49ers like the potential ceiling, but we're talking a little bit more about floor than ceiling when you talk about quarterback two. Lance is simply in a poor position right now after 2 consecutive years of season-ending injuries. And I get it. It didn't end his season in 2021, but it screwed up his whole year when he hurt his finger. And we know all about the impact on his throwing motion and his arm. Obviously, the ankle injury in 2022 ended Lance's season. Put him behind the 8 ball. Brock Purdy surpassed him on the depth chart, and the 49ers brought in Sam Darnold, who just beat him out. So anyway, it was a hell of a battle, according to Shanahan. About 10 days ago, Darnold started distancing himself. That led to this morning when Shanahan had what he called a really tough conversation with Trey Lance, and that's why Lance wasn't at practice today. I will say there's no word today in this interview, and we didn't have a chance to ask follow-up questions because this was only done on KMBR and we didn't get to talk to Kyle Shanahan, but there was no word about whether or not Lance demanded a trade. I will put something up on the screen here from my Twitter, which I found to be a really interesting quote today. So let me just open up the tweet because I thought the last part of the excerpt of this interview that KMBR posted a little bit might have hinted at what the conversation between Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan was like. So let's get this sucker up on the screen for you because I'm just trying to give you as detailed of a picture as I could possibly provide based on the information that we have. Okay, so here it is. And up on the screen, it should go in just a second. Oh, wrong screen. Here we go. All right. So this line I thought gave the strongest hints for, and this came out before Lance Shanahan said that he sent Lance home because Lance was upset after the really tough conversation. Kyle Shanahan said, quote, "We'll always try to do right for Trey. If he's in a better situation that his heart's in and something like that, we're going to make sure to do something that doesn't hurt him in that." So that's stuff I talked to him about this morning. That's stuff I'll talk to him about tonight and continue to talk to him about. But Trey knows how I feel about him, and I hope he ends up being able to be here, and that's the best thing for him. But we've got to see what is the best thing for him now until then. language like that makes me think that, especially since Kyle Shanahan openly said they talked about it this morning, they'll talk about it tonight, and they'll continue to talk with Trey Lance about that. Language like that makes it seem like that the conversation was steered in a direction that suggested that Trey Lance may have better opportunities elsewhere. That being said, Shanahan did say on the KMBR interview that he hopes that Lance is going to play on Friday. He plans for Lance to play on Friday after Sam Darnold against the Chargers, and also that he wants Lance to play for the 49ers this season. In fact, the majority of the KMBR interview was Kyle Shanahan regurgitating the stance that the 49ers have taken all off season on Trey Lance. And that has been one of option power in their quarterback room. They want Lance to be part of a strong quarterback room to make sure that they're as robust as they can possibly be at that position. It went to the point where Kyle Shanahan essentially just repeated what they'd been saying all off season, that, you know, if you have more bodies in that quarterback room, you're going to be in a better position. Even if Trey Lance is behind Sam Darnold, the 49ers can still develop him. They still believe in his future, all this and all that. And I mean, it's basically what we were talking about leading up to this announcement this week, because we expected Sam Darnold to be named the quarterback too, that Trey Lance might still be able to develop on the scout team for the 49ers, working as quarterback 3 in the background. And it might be the 49ers' best path forward. Well, because a crowded quarterback room means that you can only give a certain amount of reps to certain players, and you end up with a little bit of a logjam, but the 49ers want as many bodies as possible, so they might be able to, and they might want to keep Lance. That's what Shanahan said they want to do. Obviously, when you look at the details of the conversation that Shanahan did share, and we don't have a very crystal clear look into that. We just know that it was a really tough conversation, and that Shanahan talked about other situations. Well, it might be that kind of setup is going to be incompatible, right? If Trey Lance is unhappy right now with the situation, you're obviously going to have to do some smoothing over if you're the 49ers to see if he's on board with it. Obviously, he's under contract with the team, but you also want to make sure that the dynamics in the locker room and in the QB room are what you want them to be moving forward. Now, the 49ers do have option power in this situation, and that is Brandon Allen, right? Brandon Allen at QB 4, 3, whatever it's going to be. If Lance doesn't stay with the 49ers, then Brandon Allen could be the 49ers' third quarterback. I think it's clear they want to carry 3 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster and have that third guy be the emergency guy. And that's why Shanahan has essentially listed both possibilities. He's talked about a different situation for Trey Lance. A lot of reports coming out from credible sources saying that the 49ers are open to all possibilities with Trey Lance, and those include a trade. But Shanahan has also talked about Trey potentially staying with the 49ers. So the fact that Brandon Allen has played well this training camp, the fact that he has QB2 pedigree, has given the 49ers optionality that I talked about for a long time at this quarterback position, right? I've always talked about Brock Purdy, QB1. I've talked about Sam Darnold. If he keeps the turnovers under control, he probably has the inside track for quarterback 2. That ended up happening. And then I talked about option power between 3 and 4, Lance and Brandon Allen. And that's where we're at right now. Darnold is entrenched at 2. Now we're going to see what happens between Lance and Brandon Allen. Again, no word on if Lance demanded a trade from Shanahan. Shanahan simply said that he sent Lance home after a really tough conversation. He didn't blame Trey Lance. Kyle Shanahan just said, it's really hard to hear that. And I told him, hey, we're having a light practice today. Why don't you go get your mind right? So that's the way that Kyle Shanahan portrayed this situation. We'll see if we learn the other side of the story at some point. We do know that Lance and Sam Darnold share the same agent, Jimmy Sexton. And I also feel that this getting out there wasn't by the 49ers doing today, because they didn't seem all too prepared to react to it. I mean, no Shanahan, no Lynch presser. Just yesterday, Kyle Shanahan said that he doesn't have to let anybody know about QB2 until week 1 of the season. So it is possible, obviously, Shanahan said that he let Trey Lance and Sam Darnold know about who won the competition earlier today. It is possible that this got back to the agent, and this is just speculation on my part, and then the agent was able to get this into the media. It was Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero who first reported it. Either way, it's true. Sam Darnold has won QB2. It is true that Trey Lance did not practice today. Shanahan says it's because it was a really tough conversation, but Shanahan hopes that everything is going to continue sailing forward with Lance back in there on Friday in the preseason against the Chargers. And then the 49ers are remarkably open right now about saying that all options are on the table. Speaking of a trade, well, Jeff Howe wrote about this on The Athletic. Is Trey Lance's trade value good enough right now for the 49ers to recoup something? I think that could go in either direction. Howe actually wrote a really, really interesting piece where he talked to a lot of NFL executives. I think he talked to like 8 or 9 executives around the league, and he got such varying answers from these executives. Some thought, yeah, the Trey Lance is worth a 3rd round pick. Another executive said, no, like wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. And I think that the inconsistency of the appraisals of Trey Lance's trade value are reflective of his inconsistent play. Super raw prospect who, has shown great play for the 49ers in small stretches, and he's shown terrible play for the 49ers in small stretches. At practice yesterday, 0 for 4 to begin, wasn't, anywhere near accuracy on those 4 passes, and then was 4 for 4 to finish with 4 nice plays. Looked terrible at the start of the preseason game against the Denver Broncos, looked awesome at the end of it. So it's the up and down Trey Lance experience. At some point, you feel that he's going to figure it out, maybe at a more consistent level, but the 49ers already have a QB that they believe to be a stable commodity that can take them and win a Super Bowl, and that's Brock Purdy. And it's hard to argue with them based on what Purdy showed last year, based on what Purdy has shown in training camp this season. And then if they're Super Bowl contenders right now, well, then they can't have the up and down instability of Trey Lance at QB2, especially given the rate that QBs have gotten hurt for this team. So they found a higher floor in Sam Darnold. They sound willing to keep Trey Lance as QB3 if that's possible. But again, roster realities dictate that might not be possible. So that's why they're also opening the door, or they have opened the door. We've talked about this for a long time for a trade. But I will say that at no point has Trey Lance been more expendable for the 49ers than he is now because of Purdy's return from injury, Darnold's emergence as a solid number 2, and Brandon Allen signing. So the 49ers have 3 guys. So they have optionality now with Trey Lance if they decide they can get a good return for him, if they can open up some cap space. Trading Lance would open up over $1 million or around $1 million in cap room. I still have to do some of the firm calculations on that, but I will share them with you. One thing they can't do is cut Trey Lance, because that would be $5 million more expensive than to keep him. And we know that this team is in a tough spot. Shanahan, other quote said, we gave Lance a big chance to win that 2 spot this year. It was a very tough fight, but in the long run, Sam ended up winning it. I talked about the shared agent, and we could talk about what's next for Lance. Well, all we know is that Lance is as expendable as he's ever been to the 49ers. If they find a good option to trade him, I think they will, because they've got Brandon Allen. They're happy with Brandon Allen. They're obviously happy with Sam Darnold. We've been trying to tell you that they've been happy with Sam Darnold. Well, you probably can believe it at this point. As far as Lance, again, quarterback option power is what the 49ers want it. They have it now, and we'll see what their next move is, because option power above all else is how this team is working it. All right, I'm going to have some written analysis for you. So sub to the channel, like the video, do all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you all very soon. Everybody take care.